BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. Recently on the channel, I mentioned that I started watching 60 Minutes Australia from time to time. Their suggested videos are just always up here on YouTube. They're always trying to get me to watch more of their stuff. It started with watching something about Jeffrey Epstein and his private island, but they always seem to either have titles or imagery that pulls you in. And we've had a few discussions about the cases that we learn about from 60 Minutes Australia, not only Jeffrey Epstein and his private island, but also the murder of Rada Atif, as well as the murder of Ellie Warren. And I know that there are some circumstances surrounding those things. They don't even believe the case of Rada Atif was necessarily a murder, but, I mean, you gotta look at the evidence on that one. However, one thing that they were encouraging me to watch was the true horror story of Wolf Creek, or so I thought. And I thought, before I watch that, I'm going to check out the movie Wolf Creek, because we said sort of some of these things with the serial killer discussions. One of the ways that you can have the discussion is you can look at the true events, and then you can look at the dramatizations that have been recreated on film. It's like, what does the documentary say, and then what do the filmmakers have to say? A different way to go about examinations. But the thing is, though, I had no idea that there were going to be so many crimes that are connected to the movie Wolf Creek. Before I saw the film, if someone were to ask me, what do you know about this movie called Wolf Creek? I would say, well, I mean, they made that a while ago, right? I think that's a horror film, and I think on the title it said based on true events. It turns out it's from 2005. That's just all I would have been able to recall 15 years ago, pretty much. And it's like, we're just going to see that there are going to be countless crimes that are going to be connected to this film, Wolf Creek. And what they really were exploring, though, in this 60-minute special is not the events that inspired the film. It's quite to the contrary. It's almost like a recreation of the film Wolf Creek, except it's happening in the future. It's like history repeating itself, pretty much. And then this will bring us to our discussion today on the Salt Creek horror story. And to jump over to thedailymail.co.uk, I really thought that their introduction to this would be a good way to start here. 2 women kidnapped and assaulted at Salt Creek in Australia have spoken publicly about the incredible series of events that allow them to survive their horrific ordeal. Beatrice from Brazil and Lena from Germany told 60 Minutes Australia that they took a ride with an individual named Roman Hines early last year from Adelaide, hoping to go to Melbourne via the Great Ocean Road. First time I had heard of that one. We do have a lot of coastal highways in America, very popular destinations. I can totally imagine why they would want to do that. They were probably in a very good sense of enthusiasm, if you would say that. But one of the things, though, is Lena from Germany says 1 month prior to going on this trip, she saw the film Wolf Creek, which I don't like to give away spoilers, but it's about an individual who gives a ride to 3 backpackers, and it's a horror film. But she simply thought, there's no way things like that happen in real life. Let alone, I mean, it is inspired by true events, never mind, but that's just what she's thinking. Just, this won't happen to me. The girls said that they had someone else lined up to take them, but they had car trouble the day, so the girls called Hines instead. Hours after departing Adelaide, in the 61-year-old's 4-wheel drive, the group set up camp in the isolated dunes at Salt Creek in South Australia's Coorong National Park, and the woman's nightmare began. As Lena slept in the car, Hines told Beatrice there were kangaroos behind the dunes and convinced her to come take a look at them with him. There, he pushed her in the sand and used a knife to cut off her bikini and tied her up before sexually assaulting her. At first, I thought it was just a joke, but then I realized it wasn't. It wasn't, said Beatrice. The Brazilian woman told the program then she tried to convince Hines to go back to the camp, telling him all he had to do was ask, and the attack was not necessary. When they came back to the camp, Beatrice thought she had succeeded, but Hines suddenly changed his mind and began to drag her away. At this moment, I thought, that's my final chance, because if we go far away, I don't know what will happen, she said. And you see, though, it's like somebody lured them off to a very secluded area, and that's where the horror took place. And while we have this human curiosity about exploring far-off lands, I'll never forget a comment that I read on an episode of 48 Hours, just watching it on YouTube, and I saw in the comments section, someone was talking about living off the grid. And they said, when you live off the grid, you have to carry a weapon, meaning a firearm, because not for predators on 4 legs, but for predators on 2. Because people will try to bother you, to harass you, to attack you, and to cause trouble for you if they can get away with it. If you are far from civilization, people know that the police aren't going to get there in time. They know that they can do evil things, and there's a high chance that they will get away with it. Is that just a human fact of life? I'm not sure. I'd be curious what anyone would have to say in the comments section. But you see, this guy, Roman Hines, did just that. He lured them into a very secluded area. He knew that they were going to be in a vulnerable place, and that's when he chose to attack. And then, I screamed for Lena, said Beatrice. I just had one chance. Despite the odds, Lena was awoken by the scream and began to search for her friend. She found her nearby, naked and bound. She was lying in the dunes, and Roman was standing over her, she exclaimed. The German woman tried to scream for Hines to release her friend, and made a mad dash for his car to phone for help. He followed, telling Lena that she could get her bag, but when the woman reached into his car, he beat her over the head with a hammer, causing blood to pour out of her skull. Yes, and on 60 Minutes, they would show that she would really have to get staples in her head in her skull to repair the damage. And it's just, I know that we maybe have seen these things time and time again, but you never really get used to hearing some of those descriptions about someone who's just luring people into a secluded place, pulls out a hammer of all things, and starts beating them. Talk about savagery and viciousness. I was like, oh my God, that's it. He's going to bury me in the sand, she said. I thought that's the end because the smash was so hard. And on 60 Minutes, they had sort of a recreation of Elena being beaten with the hammer multiple times, and she's still trying to run away. And one of the things that perhaps saved her is Roman Hines didn't follow her completely at full speed. When we're talking about on foot, perhaps he was trying to save his breath and didn't want to get winded because he thought she could outrun him. But if anything, that's one of the things that saved her. Lena was hit 3 more times with the hammer before she began to escape and began a frantic dash for her life that would last hours. Managing to find Beatrice in the sand dunes before Hines reached the pair, she untied her friend, and then the pair went their separate ways. Petrified by the thought of her attacker returning, Beatrice then sat in the thick bushes as Lena ran from Hines, who was now traveling by car. I was quite surprised that one of the ways that they were able to evade capture was to do the divide and, well, not divide and conquer, that's what I was about to say. It's more like divide and dash. But in reality, when you think about it, that's another thing that probably greatly saved their lives. Many people would probably have the instinct, okay, there are 2 of us, we gotta stick together. That's often what people think about when they're going off in unknown territory, far-off lands. But in reality, there is one perpetrator, and there were 2 of them. So this divide and dash, divide and evasive behavior actually seemed to be another thing that would really work out for them. Dashing in all different directions, Lena dashed for nearly a kilometer before making sharp turns as her attacker pursued her in his 4-wheel drive. He's even chasing her with a car and he couldn't get her. As she tired, Hines began to hit her with his bumper, causing her to fall, but every time she would manage to get back up. I was so determined that I did not want to die. Not here, not now, Elena said. Eventually tiring, Lena made a drastic decision that saved her life. She ran at the car, launching herself onto the bonnet before climbing onto the roof. And that is something that I haven't really seen too many cases like that where some guy is trailing a woman in a car. So her escape plan was to get on the roof and he's not able to get her if she's driving and she's on the roof. And I was just genuinely surprised that happened. That almost seems like something that would be out of an action movie, but it happened. I thought I'm safe on the roof. He can't get me, she said. Hines tried to desperately to get Lena off of the roof. She kicked him in the face as he tried to get up. Then he tried to hit her with the hammer again. And I believe what actually happened was he had 2 hammers and a knife. And while she's on the roof, he threw all 3 of those things at her, one at a time, threw 2 hammers and a knife. All 3 of the items missed her, and by some fortune. So then, what he decided to do was to try to persuade her to come down. He offers her a hat to try and stop the wound in the head, and just kind of gives up. And then she just, he even offers her some of her other items. And this is something that genuinely shocked me. She does come down, gets in the car with him, and they start driving down. And though, passing a group of fishermen, like in Australia, they don't drive like us Americans, what we call, they drive the right side of the car, they drive on the wrong side. I mean, sorry, it's true. But because she's in the passenger seat, on the wrong side of the car, she's actually driving past these fishermen, and they're able to get a very clear look. Holy crap, somebody's in the passenger seat, and she's very beaten up. And I was just thinking about that. If this were an American car, they wouldn't have had that look at her. But because this was the way the Australians drive and the British drive, they saw someone's in the car seat beaten up and bleeding. That's another thing that really saved their lives. In short, what you can say, though, about this individual, this perpetrator, Roman Hines, he is very sloppy, making countless mistakes. You would think that this was the first time that he had done it, but was it? Now, Beatrice, the other girl, the woman from Brazil, she was able to get away. And bear in mind, Roman Hines has cut her bikini off, she is naked, and she is just running. And she's able to wave down some other motorists, a different group of people. But the thing is, though, sometimes people don't stop. She was very fortunate that they stopped. We talked about this with the disappearance of Joan Risch, where some people see a woman on the side of the road or perhaps walking down the median of the road with blood running down her legs, and they're just like, keep on driving. We talked about this with the case of Cynthia Jaramillo, who escaped the serial killer David Parker Ray and had nothing on except a chain around her neck, and she's pounding on someone's car window, please, a serial killer is trying to get me. And they just drove on. They're like, that's weird, but we're going to keep on driving. She is very fortunate that they stopped. Once again, this is just turning into some Murphy's Law for Roman Hines, but good. I mean, he is a disgusting perpetrator that is just bent on dominating people whom he believes he can dominate because he thinks he can get away with it. The man eventually lured... Oh, yes, we read that thing down about Elena. And anyway, I just want to thank God that there was someone on the beach, and there was no way in this world that those girls would have got away otherwise, she said. I have no doubt in my mind that he would have killed them. Hines later confessed to assaulting another female backpacker in September of 2014, and he had contacted another 13 backpackers and had pornographic videos on his phone. He was jailed for 22 years and is expected to appeal the severity of the sentence. And I would like to thank this article here from the Daily Mail, and this was written by Hannah Moore for Daily Mail Australia. But the issue with that is, not only was he accused of assaulting and sexually assaulting these 2 girls here, Beatrice and Elena, even his ex-wife came forward with evidence saying that she had been raped by him, producing photographic evidence of the bruises and the beatings that she had endured. But the judge said something rough happened, but they couldn't confirm that it had indeed been a rape, which is also a very tragic thing. I mean, it's just, the legal system does not protect everyone, and that is something that is just very saddening. I would say, though, after watching the film Wolf Creek, because I wanted to see the film first before I looked at any of the true crime events that were going to be surrounding it, I thought that I was going to find just one story about what could have been going on with the events that would have inspired this movie. And it's a very loose thing. Like, we have based on a true story. Then you have based on real events. Then you have inspired by a true story, and then inspired by real events, where those are all different levels of how they can take something that is true and then recreate it in film. They add in some things. And I believe the real film, Wolf Creek, well, we should say the film Wolf Creek is based upon a series of events that have been kind of put together. I never thought that I would be finding so many true crime events that are going to be connected to one film. It's just kind of like the epicenter of a variety of things. And we're going to explore a few more of them on the channel this week, so please stay tuned. And once again, I would also like to invite anyone to check out our uploads on the murder of Rauda Atif. It's possibly a suicide, but most people believe that it is a murder. The murder of Rauda Atif and the murder of Ellie Warren. These are some things that we have also learned about from 60 Minutes Australia. I mean, very fascinating cases. And to the credit of 60 Minutes Australia, they are really sharing stories that are very gripping and compelling. Either that or they were good at presenting these true crime cases in an engaging way that makes you want to learn more and makes you want to read more articles and find out what other YouTubers have to say, as well as perhaps, hopefully one day, the creation of larger documentaries. But with this one, you can see that Roman Hines possibly did this to someone else 3 years prior. It's possible he did the exact same thing, and he's accused of that one as well. He's luring people to a secluded area to do unspeakable acts to them because he thinks he can get away with it. He is trying to prey on the vulnerable, the definition of being a predator. And there's nothing profound about that. And as you see about how easily he was duped, I mean, the girls outsmarted him. The girls had more courage than he did. These women defeated him. And that's like one of the ways that they would tie this up. It's really the spirit of humanity, the desire to live, the will to survive that pushed them forward. And when you look at somebody like Roman Hines, I mean, he's talking about appealing the severity of the sentence. Why on earth would they let somebody that dangerous out of prison? I mean, someone who is beating a woman with a hammer in an isolated area, if he is let out of prison prior to the 23 years, it's most likely he will do it again to somebody. If he was in his 60s when he committed this crime, he was 61 at the time, now sentenced to 23 years, then he will be in his 80s when he gets out, and he'll probably be a less dangerous at that time. We can only hope. But all I can say is right now, normally we end this by kind of asking some things about the challenge questions. The only challenge question I could say is, what do you think about anything we've talked about? What do you think about crimes that occur in very secluded and isolated areas? If you have anything to share at all, I would love to hear your comments in the section below. And if you like this upload, you can hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, you're welcome to do so. But the biggest thing that I would say is just, please stay tuned this week, because we have many things that are going to be connected to this film, Wolf Creek. And it's going to be going in a variety of directions. It's really not what I thought. That's just the biggest thing that I have to say as a concluding note. There is a lot more to the story about the movie Wolf Creek, and the true horror events that are connected to this film are rather unbelievable. Well, that's all for me now. Until next time.